Hey, welcome to You Didn't Get the Memo. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. As always, we got a dope show for you, and I am telling you, I know a lot of y'all have been asking me about my guest, Miss Frenchy Davis, and you wanted to know, okay, I need to just tune in because I want to know what this whole thing is about sexual abolitionists. So guess what? Grab your friends, grab your family. It we're going to enlighten you. Let's just say that. But before I jump into that, I just want to again thank all of you guys for tuning in to You Didn't Get the Memo show. For those of you who aren't familiar, we are about providing you, the viewer, with relevant, factual, mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. Now, I do want to tell you in this particular platform, we allow you to make comments or ask questions, and you can place those in the comment sections, and we'll do our very best to make sure that we get to you. So, let me just say, without further ado, let me welcome to the studio, Miss Frenchy Davis, all the way live, East Coast, in the house. What's happening? How are you?
I am swell.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for agreeing to be a guest on my show. And I am just thrilled, excited about this. And like you said, it's a family affair. So,
Yes,
well,
it is.
I love this. I love this. So I'm going to ask you. I usually kind of get into introducing, but I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself before we get into talking about all the things I wish my mom had taught me, but didn't teach me, right? So let's tell the viewers a little bit about you. What's your backstory? Who is Miss Frenchie Davis?
So, I am the sexual abolitionist. I am a sexologist by educational trade. I studied in human sexuality, and I also possess a master's of public health in public health and leadership. And so people always say, well, what's a sexologist? Do you teach people about sex? And so to minimize what I do in a simple box, I would say that human sexuality is about the relationship between your mind, your body, and your heart. And what I do is help people understand that relationship and then free them from sexual oppressions that they've experienced through their lifetime.
Okay. All right. So now you guys have it. So let's jump into a little bit about your particular area of focus because I thought I was fascinated by it, and I personally didn't think it was about teaching people about sex, right? Because if you think about the word abolish, right, what does abolish mean? We want to do away with, and so that is one of the reasons why I wanted us to be able to talk to, because we're going to get into some deep and heavy stuff
We
today.
are. We
And
are.
I
Yes.
just know in having a dialogue with you, I mean, I was like, my mind was blown just thinking about a lot of the things that people aren't aware of. So, why this particular area of focus? I'm just kind of drilling down a little bit with you.
I think it started as a young woman who one experienced my as a young girl experiencing my own sexual traumas, but then coming up in my adolescent teen years and experiencing a lot of loss. I lost a lot of friends due to relationships gone awry. I had witnessed a lot of domestic violence in my adolescent teen years, and so I had a lot of questions, and it took me on a journey, and through that journey, I also, my background started in HIV advocacy, where I worked at an AIDS hospice. And then I worked in domestic violence, managing a crisis shelter for battered women and their children for multiple years. And, and finally found a graduate program that aligned with my sexual and spiritual goals about teaching um, the public and my community about sexual health, about emotional literacy, And so I just realized, like, this program is my spirit animal. And there are a lot of oppressions, particularly as a community of color, particularly as a Black community, and so many blind spots that we are not privy to. And so it is my responsibility, my passion, and my skill set and my expertise to teach our community, to teach the Black community about their sexual well-being as well as their self-advocacy and agency.
Yeah, all right, absolutely. And I do want to underscore that you are a very, very well traveled,
Yeah.
well sought after speaker.
28 countries and counting.
And the fact that you have traversed, the continent, and people have gravitated to your seminars because of what you're dealing with and hearing your story, right? When people can relate to that, that also makes a difference. So one of the things I want to get into is, and we're going to jump around, but the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I want to deal with is, let's talk about some of the things. Let's just start with one thing that you wish your mom had taught you but didn't teach you. So can we start with that first? Ease into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a way to ease into that.
Okay.
Our any parent, any person that becomes a parent they don't say to themselves, when I have children, I'm going to mess them up. I'm going to fuck them up. No one says that. And yet we find ourselves in these parental conundrums, if you will. And so I had to think about, as an evolving young woman, um, the conversations that I did not have with my mother specifically. There are conversations I did not have with my father, and there are conversations I did not have with my mother, and how that influenced how I navigated through my relationships with other women, with other men, in my partnerships, um, in my sexual agency, in understanding who I am as a woman. And so when we think about those questions, and sometimes, by not telling us something, they are telling us something. So by not telling us that we are sexual beings, they are telling us that our bodies belong to someone else. By not telling us that we have a voice, that we have sexual agency, they are suggesting and influencing us to understand that our agency belongs to someone else. And so there have been so many conversations that our mothers have been intimidated to have with us, that have that they may not have their own self-awareness, and most importantly, that they've been influenced by their mothers as well. And so a lot of times we
Hmm.
pass, our traditional love and our traditional messages down
Hmm.
to our children, and those traditional messages may not apply to our living pathologies,
Hmm.
and what that does to us, how that impacts us.
Right, right. And let's just say the thing is just what you're talking about. Parents can only give you, kids don't come with books.
No, they
And
don't.
and
There'd be a lot
therefore,
of books.
right. And therefore, as you said, they're navigating the space. And it's a space where there are certain things that aren't talked about. For instance, you talk about as a young girl, but what do parents do? They talk to their daughters in a sense of preparing them for everyone else, but they're not prepared for themselves. And we kind of talked about that. So when we think about the things that our mothers didn't, you wish that they had taught us, but they didn't teach us. Again, I think that they were also handicapped as well.
Absolutely. Each generation, as we progress, gains a new understanding and platform for agency. But if we look at historically the agency that was afforded to our mothers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, our ancestors, they did not have the same agency that we are seeing that young women have today. And even examining the agency that so many young women have today, it can be jolting, it can be startling, it can be, you're not supposed to do that, you're not, this is not how you get a husband, this is not how you, have the world perceive you, how they look at you. We certainly include in a lot of respectability politics. And whereas we, Black women in particular, are designated to a certain level of respectability politics that so many other women are not required to live up to that standard. And so we are now in a generation, in a space, in a history where we are unpacking and really analyzing this notion of respectability politics, this notion of who belongs, who does not belong, this notion of what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, this notion of a sexual agency. So these are all new things, new languages, new terms that were not afforded to us in 1918, that weren't afforded to us in 1930 and 1940. They weren't afforded to us in the 1960s and 1970s. But here we are in 2021, and we have a whole new platform of empowerment. And how do we use that empowerment? How do we move forward?
Right, right. Well, I'm going to just say, gotta pay the bills. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back, and we're going to continue this conversation because I want to get into us discussing about getting with your species, parasitic parenting.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Show some respect. Show you give a damn. Show the world how it's done. Show them that when your community needed you the most, you showed up. Mask up, America.
Myth. If you get COVID-19, you'll recover after a few days. That myth is false. We're only just beginning to understand the effects of COVID-19 on the human body, as we're starting to see more and more people identifying as long haulers who are having symptoms for weeks, if not months, after their initial infection. Continue to wear a mask, socially distance, and wash your hands. Together, we can keep COVID out of school.
For ways to keep your community safe, go to backtoschooltogether.com.
All right. If you are just tuning in, you are tuned in to one of the dopest shows around. You didn't get the memo with my host, Miss Frenchy Davis, all the way from the East Coast. And I love that I have to give a shout out to all the East Coast people. Austin is showing up for me. So shout out to you guys as well. Before we went to break, one of the things that I ask you, let's come back to this conversation that we're having around parenting, because I think a lot of people may have thought that, this is let's bash your mama, or
No.
and it's not at all about that. It's about these things that you said. For us as women of color in particular, in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s we didn't have a voice. And even with women's liberation wasn't so much, in my opinion, for Black women. Yeah, there was some liberation, but the things that I think our Caucasian counterparts, our colleagues, experience was very, very different from what women and Black women, Black and brown women experience. So when we're talking about navigating this conundrum, as you call it, it's vast, it's deep, it's wide, it's complex, and there are all these things that go into it. But let's get back to just, talking about, I said before we went to break, I want to talk about parasitic parenting. And I said we'll jump back and forth around. But, in your opinion, what is a definition of parasitic parenting when you hear that or think about that?
So parasitic parenting is a unique term, and it is about the attachment of the parenting to the host said child, and therefore makes that child actually more vulnerable than what they may attend to. And what do I mean by more vulnerable? Again, when we particularly teach our girls a manner of being versus how we teach our sons a manner of being. When we classify girls, especially girls, as being fast versus boys as being debonair, a ladies' man. These are ways that we institute a parasitic form of parenting that we are not mindful of. And I always say, particularly around religion-based respectability politics, a lot of times we can point out the fast girl. Oh, she fast, she grown, she hot in the pants. But seldom do we point out the girl that has been sexually violated or molested. And so easily we can find the fast girl merely just by her body type, just by her being busty, just by her having hips at 14 years old. Girls learn that they're fast by the way that they walk.
Right.
And they're just walking. There's only a certain way you can move with hips, especially on a sister like us. There's only a certain way that you can really move, right? Mm-hmm. And yet we will assign a stigma to them.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
We will tell our sons, oh, don't mess with that one. She's fast.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to sit your fast self down. You are doing too much. We don't correct men. We don't correct uncles who are saying something about their nieces. We don't correct, pastors in the pulpit, but we will correct our little girls.
Right.
We'll correct our daughters. That is parasitic parenting.
Yeah. And the message that is being sent, especially when kids nowadays are developing even at a faster rate. So when you're 8 or 9 years old and somebody is commenting because, like you said, you've got hips or you've got a bust or those things, you have to think about that child's mind hasn't caught up with their body. So therefore, you send in these negative messages already about body image and how you're supposed to be and you're supposed to be down. I remember listening to a show and they were saying that nobody knew that Janet Jackson had, such hips on her, right? And because she hid it all these years.
She wore blazers. Yes.
That's right. She did.
Layered.
She covered herself up.
Yes.
And this is what we're talking about, is dealing with these messages that are going forward to our children. And you are so right. I always say that mothers raise their daughters, but they spoil their sons. And when you really think about it, nobody ever said he was being managed. I think growing up, I may have heard that 1 or 2 times and still didn't know what did that really mean. Right.
It's an excuse for masculine behaviors over feminine behaviors. And that is certainly a cultural phenomenon. And this is not about placing blame, but it is very important that we acknowledge and recognize how we have created an ecological imbalance between our sons and our daughters.
Oh, wow. Now, okay, now that's a whole nother topic right there. Geez, that's something to think about. An ecological imbalance between males and female.
Well,
Yeah.
because we can't raise our daughters to be chaste, to wait until marriage, to be monogamous, all the while raising our sons to be ladies' men,
To sow their
to
wild oats.
sow their oats.
Mhm.
You can't tell a young man like, oh yeah, take your time, sow your oats, figure out what's out there. These girls only want you for one thing, and they're after you for your wallet. So just, bypass them, ignore your feelings. And then we want them to speed through women and then say, stop, now be monogamous.
Right.
And then bring our daughters up like, no, don't, be chaste, don't explore, don't masturbate, don't learn yourself, don't have any sexual agency. Don't worry, he's going to take care of all of that for you. As soon as you find a husband, he's going to take care of all of that for you. And even though he's gonna practice infidelity too, because he's never practiced monogamy in the first place,
Right.
But don't worry, he's gonna take care of you.
Yeah.
We
And that's
can't send these messages and
right.
expect an outcome of a happy relationship, a healthy marriage, a lasting marriage, if we continue to raise them at imbalances through their livelihoods.
And let me just stick a pin in that. We're not painting every male with a broad brush. We're not saying everyone. There are some, they're just wired like that. But they get with one person and that's it. That's okay. But what I am talking about is just that whole piece as we relate to boys and girls, males and female, and the thought that he will always take care of me, because a lot of times there are females who get so caught up and they are in that conundrum that, oh, he loves me because he says he does and he provides for me. But that comes back to how girls have been prepared for taking on a mate, but not knowing how to deal with themselves and take care of themselves.
Right. And if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of yourself. I know that's kind of deep because some people don't realize what I'm saying when I speak of take care of yourself. But I mean, intimately, sexually, if you can't take care of yourself, you're going to struggle with taking care of yourself. In any partnership, there's going to be a struggle as to how you take care of yourself. You will then be reliant on others to take care of you because we have not had conversations with our daughters about how to take care of themselves.
Well, and the other thing too, though, Frenchie, is there that whole piece of you're going to go blind. You
Isn't that cute?
you can't.
To this day, I haven't experienced any sexual blindness in any clients I've ever met, but okay.
Right. But again, that's why we're talking about dispelling those beliefs. And that's where the sexual abolitionist piece comes in to, it's just being okay with being okay and being okay, because there are so many people who are not okay being by themselves. There are so many people who are not okay with, I gotta have a man. I gotta have you. It's almost like, for lack of a better term, being on crack. You just got to have that particular person around you, with you, and you're not even clear on who you are. You don't know who you are.
You know what that really makes me think of how mothers model in their relationships. So you can't be comfortable in a single relationship with yourself if your mother has never modeled being comfortable and happy in a single relationship with herself. So you will always assume that there's a hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
and that to be fulfilled and to be happy requires only the system of marriage to be happy.
Right.
And so then you get in the marriage and you're like, this doesn't feel right, but I was told and socialized and
Mm-hmm.
indoctrinated that this is all I needed to make me happy.
Right.
So until
Hello.
we are modeling actual happy, single, healthy behavior, even though the studies have demonstrated that women are happier unmarried, unwed, um, in their relationships, that they live longer, they prosper better, they have less stress, they experience less weight gain. There's my word. Um, and so many health benefits to not being wed. The benefits usually the male partner experiences in that marriage. The wife is normally stressed. She is most often solely responsible for the rearing and the bringing up of the children, the overseeing of the household, the overseeing of her work experiences as well. And it's a lot. There's a lot of
Yeah.
bricks on
Yeah.
one individual.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the unwed woman is kind of like, hey,
Right.
catch me
And
up
of
here.
course, that goes
I'm
back to
catching
she's
flights,
fast.
not feelings.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so she's
You know.
fulfilled.
Right.
But it is not the way that we've been brought up. And we've also been socialized to think that, that marriage only comes at a certain age.
Yes.
That, statistically, if you're not married by one age, you won't get married, which is statistically inaccurate. It is statistically inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the statistic is all women will get married. They just get married at different points in their life.
Right. Right. It's kind of like you aren't fulfilled unless you have child or children. So women who are single and who have made a conscious decision that I am not going to have a child. I am not going to bring a child into this world because one, realistically looking at what that takes, what that costs, and I've actually heard people say they were very selfish by not having a child.
I've heard it.
And
I've heard it. It's not too late for you. Get in while you can. It's not
right,
too
right,
late.
right.
Whether you are childless or child free, because there are some women who are childless, and we should clarify the difference between women who are childless and women who are child free. Childless means you attempted, you wanted, you had desire for children, and it did not work out biologically in your favor. And there are women who are child free who chose not to go the parental route or to have children. And whether either of this is your path, because we don't know looking at someone whether they are childless or whether they are child free. But we should honor these women no matter what space they're on. I mean, after all, if we're talking about our mothers and what our mothers taught us, many of our mothers lost children. They lost children through miscarriages. They
Mhm.
lost children through stress. They lost children because they had too many other children. They
Mhm.
like these traditions, and and had they known that
Yes.
we could celebrate them and honor them
Yes.
as being mother free, imagine the health impact, the emotional impact it would have had on these women who felt like they were less than women because they were not able to have children.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
That's where
Uh,
we're not fair to one another.
yeah. That I would definitely agree with. Listen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're still talking about parasitic parenting. We're talking
Mhm.
about things that you wish your mom had taught you, but I also want to get into talking about get with your species.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
you
Let's do
guys
that.
don't go anywhere. You're tuned in to You Didn't Get the Memo with me, your host, Gloria Billy Ray, and also my awesome guest, Miss Frenchy Davis. We'll be right back.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text to emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little.
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
Testing. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy.
All right. If you guys are just tuning in, you are tuned in to You Didn't Get the Memo with my guest, Miss Frenchy Davis. And we're talking about things that you wish your mom had taught you but didn't teach you. And Miss she has a master's in public health, but she also is a sexual abolitionist. And if you've been tuned in, and I just say go back and watch the show, it stays up. But we're talking about those things in terms of how it comes down to even honoring women. Before we went to break, I thought you just made some really excellent points about how women who are childless are in many ways in society seen as not being worthy.
Absolutely. So there are, and this speaks to the communication that we experience from our mothers.
Mhm.
There's a lot of false information. So much false information. You're not a woman if you're not a mother.
Mhm.
Is a myth. Is a falsehood. One, we already know that there are so many women who biologically are not predisposed to even be parents.
Yes.
They are not any less a woman. Um, there are narratives that our mothers taught us. You could keep a good man if you fuck him good. We all know. I think it's been proven that this is a myth. If you do this, if you a good cook, if you a good cleaner, if you do all of these things, you can keep your spouse.
Mm. We know that to be the farthest thing from the truth,
It is the
right?
furthest thing, but is it passed down traditionally from
Yes.
generation to generation, from mother to daughter, year after year after year? And so
But
we
even
have to
growing
change
up,
the narrative.
that narrative about being able to cook and clean, way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And now I meet so many women who don't even
Uber done messed that up for everybody.
right. I was gonna say they can't even boil water, let alone. And so that is not the criteria that I think people nowadays are looking for in relationships. But what they are looking for is how do we work together? How does this whole thing work out? And so let's talk about that leads into about getting with your species. What do you mean by that? Get with your
Yeah.
species.
Because even, no woman should want to be reduced to her cooking skills.
Mm, okay.
You don't marry a person because of their cooking skills.
Right.
Why would we be reduced to that?
But so many are.
We are, but and again, this is a gender war, right? So all
Mhm.
our chefs are men and all our mothers are cooks.
Mhm.
And all our chefs earn high earning wages, and all our mothers are just simply expected to receive thank
Right.
yous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I always say, a woman belongs in the kitchen, A man belongs in the kitchen. Kids belong in the kitchen because there's food in the kitchen.
Right.
Everyone belongs in the kitchen. So then that means that then who do we find that speaks a message of affirmation to us? Who do we find that speaks to our spirit, that speaks to our self-agency, that speaks to our personal goals without the idea of diminishing that? And that's when you realize that you have to pursue an individual that is your own species. And because we are not a monolith, and because so many people have different values, different understandings, come from different cultural backgrounds, it is very important that we pursue people that align with our compatibilities, our commonalities, and our spirituality. And so a lot of times we start dating from the mind down. You're supposed to date from the body up. What is your body telling you? We should listen to our bodies. Our bodies are our intuition. Intuition is God speaking to us. But instead, we speak from the mind down. And society tells us, this person is good for you. This person should do this. This person, because they earned this, should be that. And this person, because they speak this way and they live this way, that is what you need. And more oftentimes than not, you find out that is not who we are truly connecting with. So we should seek our partners from the body up. Listen to our bodies. Listen to what our bodies are telling us. Listen to what our intuition is telling us. Listen to how God is speaking to us. And not what society has informed us of who we should be with out of the very sake of tradition.
Yeah. Well, this comes back to one of the things that I said, though, is that you've traversed continents. So your perspective, of course, is very different. And I would say to anybody, it's one of those things, just get out and start to explore. There are some people who they want vacation together. They want vacation by themselves. They want, if I don't have, and I'm thinking that what's wrong with that picture? And when I say wrong, I don't say it in a negative sense. It's just that, is there not a comfort level to be able to do this yourself without having somebody with you?
We've been really reprimanded for being single. Single is not a popular relational experience in the US. If you're in Europe and in Africa, if you are in Asia, people travel to explore the world for the sake of exploration. And if you are in America, for the status quo, for the promotion of capitalism, for the promotion of you find this person in high school or in college, and then you get married, and then you have kids, and there is a ring, and we've marketed the diamond rings, even though they're a depreciating commodity, and truly that there's not a high value actually in the diamonds. They depreciate like cars, and yet we're still this notion of you're supposed to have 3 months savings and buy this diamond even though it depreciates, and that 30% of couples who get married go broke and have to file for bankruptcy after their marriage. We don't have those conversations. And so we're promoting this, this be together, even though we've seen a 30% rise in divorces during COVID. It's 30% rise.
Wow.
And so we're not actually unpacking why this is occurring. And it's because people didn't really date their species. They got married because they thought they were supposed to get married. They got married because, the wedding sounds like a very cool thing and everyone's present. They got married for the sake of tradition. They got married because they thought they could combine households. They got married because they thought that would be a good parent. And then when they get there in the actual marriage, they experience something totally new and different, something that this marketing never included.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a point. I heard you with, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but you guys were talking on a show.
Ron
And
Williams.
okay, and he brought up the thing with Vivica Fox. I think it was Vivica Fox who said that she got divorced
She didn't want to be the breadwinner.
because she didn't want to be the breadwinner. So going back to things that my mom taught me but didn't teach me. But when you think about it, how many women of color, had to be breadwinners? It took both. So hearing that, Ron
But
had
they
a
weren't. They never would use a term as breadwinner.
right. True.
They were in a cooperative relationship. We know today, statistically, one, that there are more men in college than there are in prison. We don't talk about this statistic enough, in how colleges and universities had underreported or not reported at all the enrollment of Black men in collegiate institutions. But it doesn't change the fact that we have a prison industrial complex that is a system of oppression to break down the Black family. The welfare system instituted by Ronald Reagan was a system to break down the Black family. During the 40s and the 50s, marriage was at 80% for Black families and 50% for Caucasian or white families. So most Black people today do not know that our marital data was at that rate, and we had little to nothing. There was no breadwinner. There was survival. Everyone had to pitch into responsibilities. There were no men making six figures, but there were men making it work.
Right.
There were men who, were stay-at-home dads. And that was the origination of stay-at-home dads, when Black men were not provided the opportunity to work.
Yes.
And so when it comes to breadwinner, that is an oppressive ideology used by other, because they had to create some form of leverage. Oh, you got to let this woman bring in the money even though we're oppressing you? It's like, had you not have burned down Tulsa, these men would have been millionaires on par with you, and we would have been breadwinners together. And so what you had to do was create a psychological warfare and come up with the term like breadwinner. But if any woman has the financial agency and freedom to contribute to the decisions of the household, this is not a bad thing. I think of so many women who could not leave unhealthy relationships simply because economically they were not in the position to. We have to remember, our our place in history. You know, Roe v. Wade didn't happen until 1973. The National Organization for Women didn't happen until 1966. These are very, very, very recent times. You know, women were not allowed to have credit on property until the late 50s, early 60s. So now that women have the opportunity to balance economically in their household, be a part of the decision-making process, and then you have a woman saying, no, I'm not interested.
Right, right.
It is a skewed perspective influenced by capitalism and white inferiority, or white insecurity. I don't use the term like supremacy because there's nothing supreme about it. But it is a white insecurity that would market these notions. We always had warrior queens.
Yes.
Warrior women.
Yes, yes, yes.
There was no man saying, oh no, you can't be a warrior in Africa. You can't be, you can't lead this military in Africa. There in Native American culture, in the Aborigine culture, there was not this combative instance. And so at some point we have to get back to dating our species and being cooperative. And there are still going to be some people who align with those values.
Right.
And this is why I say that would be your species.
Right, right. Absolutely. Going back to the gentleman Ron and what he talked about and how he talked about it. And I love the way how you encapsulated all of this. Literally, what you're saying is getting back to your species, but understanding that I guess I'm still wrapping my arms around what Ron was saying. If you're making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and the man, he contributes in other ways. And the fact that that wasn't looked at, or it wasn't seen, it wasn't embraced, that he's doing other things. It's not a novel concept that now you hear a lot of white males that say, I'm a stay-at-home dad. But that's not a novel concept.
No, it's what we have been doing all along.
Right, right.
But ironically, I have to challenge women who think that way, that if they had to do everything that a man was doing and all the weight and the pressure that is put upon Black men to subscribe to, would they be able to do it? Like we can get mad at our fellow brethren for being mindful and aware enough to know that they need to protect their mental health, that they need to protect their well-being, and that being all things is unreasonable. For Black women, we constantly say, we're not supposed to be your hero. Speak up for us. We can't be everything.
Right, right.
Then we equally should not ask our partners to be everything.
Okay.
That would be unreasonable and unfair, right?
Right. And that's how we see it. And like you said, there will be some that will just, they will still gravitate to what they've known as norm and not explore this. But what we're talking about is how we build strong, healthy relationships. What we're talking about is how people get in touch and realize, you know what? I'm not supposed to be barefoot and pregnant and you out doing whatever. This is collaboration. The word collaboration in itself speaks to what it is that we're talking about. But hold that thought. When we come back, I want you to talk about, this is a great conversation. The comments are, this is a great conversation.
Hi, everybody.
So I want to come back, and I want you to talk about some of the workshops that you conduct,
Oh, yes.
and hear from you in that regard. So guys, don't go anywhere. I'm here with Miss Frenchy Davis, East Coast flavor by way of Detroit, but we are so happy to have you here with us. So guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
It's all of our responsibility to slow the spread of the coronavirus. So follow guidance from authorities where you live and stay home unless absolutely necessary. You can still use your outdoor spaces like yards and decks. It's also okay to go for a walk or exercise outside. Wear a cloth face covering, stay at least 6 feet away from other people, try not to touch any surfaces, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging in here. We've been having a dope conversation with my guest, Miss Frenchie Davis, who is a sexual abolitionist, and she has enlightened so many of us about so many things. And by the way, I'm on par with that. So yeah, I feel you on that. But I think the conversation is definitely needed and one that we have to talk about. For those of you who are asking, I'm going to put it in the chat, but her website is Dis La Verite.
De la Verite.
That's right, you French.
Is
French.
I'm Frenchy. It is French. De la Verite. So if you can say Louis Vuitton, you'll get this too. It's totally okay.
Gotcha.
But it means speak the truth in French.
Okay.
And my work, we are the Institute of Emotional Literacy. And there has been a lot of language around emotional intelligences, and you just have to be emotionally intelligent. And it's like, okay, but we have to unpack what emotional intelligence is. And so what our organization does is help people develop an understanding of emotional intelligence and how human sexuality is the balance of teaching the connection between the mind, the body,
yes,
and the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all have emotions. We should have emotions. But how do you navigate those emotions?
Mm-hmm.
Why you should not hide any of those emotions, and how you explore all the emotions that you are feeling, beyond being angry, beyond being happy. But there are so many other emotions and behaviors that navigate and happen in between happy and angry. And so the Institute of Emotional Literacy is there to help you understand and unpack that. And so that is our work, and we do that in many ways. We do that on a corporate level. We do that in group coaching, and we do that on retreats.
And that is what I wanted you to talk about. In fact, you got an upcoming retreat in Costa Rica very soon.
I do.
Did I read that right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So this is called the Back to Us retreat. And it's what I've noticed a lot in social media and a lot of platforms. You have a lot of influencers that create a wave of followership by being divisive, ultimately, by offering tidbits of information. And sometimes the information sounds practical and pragmatic and reasonable, but they don't offer any practice behind it. So you can't give advice without practice behind it, because if you don't put practice behind it, then the advice kind of falls flat. And so while I sometimes appreciate what these individuals are trying to do, What I need to do to make sure that we are building a military of Black love, a military of Black love. I understand that there are only going to be so many Black sexologists in the world. And so what we need to do is call upon our community to come in where we do workshops. Through our retreat, we teach communication, communion, conflict resolution for singles and couples. And you come to Costa Rica, we are creating our own paradise. We are creating a Black paradise. And we come and we teach these workshops. So you have vacation with a purpose. And when you return, we want that information to filter out in your family, in your community, in your relationships. And that's how we build our military.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. So, this is so much. There's not enough time to crowd everything into this.
Never.
So when we come back, I want you to think about what it is that you want people who are watching the show to take away from today. And we will be back in 30 seconds.
Thank you for watching the You Didn't Get the Memo show with your inspirational host, Gloria Bailey Ray. It's your contributions that make this happen. To become a sponsor, send an email to youdidn'tgetthememo@gmail. That's the letter U, didn't get the memo. If you're not in a space to be a sponsor, but you like what you hear, we simply ask that you support what you like by making a contribution to the show. There are 3 ways to make an online donation. Visit paypal.me/Gloria Bailey Ray or Cash App or Venmo, Gloria Bailey Ray. Give what you can. Your support is appreciated.
All right. Look, we're winding down. We've had great conversations with Miss Frenchy Davis. And before we took that quick break, I said, when we come back, I want you to tell people what it is that you want them to take away from today's show. So, stage is yours. Go for it.
I want you to take away that it's okay to unpack all the myths and all the traditions that you have been taught over your lifespan. They are traditions. They are not built in facts. They are built in institutions of control. They are built in institutions of capitalism. They are built in institutions of taking away self-agency. And what's really important is that you acquire at any point in your life your own self-agency to make decisions that inform you in a healthier, happier way. So that is what is most important in this segue. And that while we do not hold our parents responsible or our mothers responsible for what they taught us, they are accountable. And you too have to be accountable for setting new traditions and new goals for being happy and healthy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Miss Frenchie. I don't want you to go anywhere. Stay right there. All right. All right. I want to say to all of you, first of all, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to today's show. And I definitely want to thank Miss Frenchy Davis for being on the show today. I want to remind you guys to remember to support our efforts. It's through your donations, your sponsorships that we're able to continue to bring these type of guests to you and enhance and inform you about people that you may not otherwise know about. I want to definitely give a shout out to all of my supporters, Crispy, Abilities Beyond, Global Investments. I want to thank all of you guys so much for your support. I want you to be sure and follow me on all my social media platforms and mark your calendars for every Tuesday, you guys, 5 p.m. to join me and my dynamic guests. Heads up, noobs, Listen, coming up on next week, June the 8th, I will have Mr. Jeffrey Brown in the studio, and he's going to be talking with us about the Kappa Community Project. I will also have on the show on the 15th, Miss Melissa Helms, who's the Executive Director of Serenity House. That's just the beginning for the month of June, family. So be sure and lock in every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to watch the show. Again, I want to give a quick shout out to those of you in Austin, Texas. Y'all just blowing me up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am honored. As I always say, if you guys didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's actually you who didn't get the memo. So until this time next week, have a great week. Give thanks for all of your blessings. Stay safe, practice emotional intelligence, be kind, and pay it forward. But most of all, remember this. The quality of your life is determined by the decisions that you make. Be well. Peace out.